What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell if you want to get notified every time I upload a brand new video. Now, I was in Hollywood Brown's live stream on Twitch the other day. I don't know. Y'all can check it out, if you want. And he was talking about, how he really wants to change numbers. And if he can't do it this year because he has to pay, I believe, $170,000 to pay off the current jerseys Nike's already manufactured with his number 15 on it, you can change it for free the next season. So presumably he wants to change to the number 5. It's the number he wore in college. But obviously number 5 was worn by Joe Flacco. And I've seen the kind of discussions that people have had. They've brought up the debates, and on Twitter, I've seen it in streams and things like that about whether or not Joe Flacco's jersey should be retired, because it's a very intriguing question, really. So before I'm going to give both sides of the argument, but before I do, I want y'all to comment down below what you think before I've even laid out the argument. If you have an opinion already, let me know. And then afterwards you can see, hey, did this video change your mind or anything like that? Did you see new points or things like that? So let's get into the reasons why Joe Flacco's jersey number 5 should be retired by the Ravens. So the main reason is obviously for the Super Bowl. He won the Super Bowl, but it's not 100% the Super Bowl. I mean, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, but it's like the Super Bowl run, I guess you could say, is the main reason as to why. I mean, heck, that's the main reason why Joe Flacco got a ton of money, was the Super Bowl run. You look at that run, and I'm going to say it was the greatest run a quarterback has ever had in postseason history. 11 touchdowns, 0 picks, 1,140 yards, defeated, rising superstar Andrew Luck. He defeated arguably the most talented quarterback to ever play football. That is also the most heavily decorated regular season quarterback of all time in Peyton Manning, the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. And then, they defeated a seemingly impossible San Francisco 49ers team that was surging with, Colin Kaepernick and that kind of, honestly, that Greg Roman scheme that everybody was struggling so much to go against. And then the Niners squad also had a pretty solid defense that year. So, in that playoff run, obviously he beat some incredible quarterbacks, some very good teams. The Ravens were not the favorites to win the Super Bowl by any means. But Flacco had some pretty darn good moments in that Super Bowl run, in addition to just, the 11 touchdowns and that stuff. Most notably was definitely the Flacco flaying the Mile High Miracle, whatever you want to call it, to Jacoby Jones to send the game into overtime against the Broncos, which is that is one of the greatest playoff games of all time. I mean, people forget how good that game was. The Trindon Holiday punt return, kickoff return touchdowns, Torrey Smith, deep touchdown. A lot of stuff going on in that game. Heck of a game. If y'all have not recently, go back and watch that game. It's an unbelievable game to rewatch. But another moment that he had, which, isn't really brought up by a lot of people, but it's always stuck with me. It's one of my favorite moments, maybe ever for the Ravens. Basically, it was the mic'd up moment. Joe Flacco in the Super Bowl on the sideline. Ravens are getting ready to kick off or punt off to Ted Ginn Jr., and basically Joe Flacco's on the sideline and he's telling everybody, hey man, if he breaks this, we charge the field. We charge the field, we tackle him. And everybody's like, what? What do you mean? And he's like, I don't know the rules, but it can't hurt. Like he's going to score either way. And that kind of mentality, I don't know. I always thought it was funny how he was just like, let's charge the field, because if you guys think about it, when Mike Tomlin stepped on the field and Jacoby Jones jumped out of the way and fell down, they didn't give the Ravens a touchdown. So Joe Flacco just having that thing, I don't know. It's not like a reason oh, he should be retired for that statement. I just always thought that was a funny thing about Joe Flacco. But that mentality is there. I mean, he was willing to do everything to win. I mean, I still don't know the rules on that, but there could have been something where it's oh yeah, you're suspended for a year for doing that in the Super Bowl. There could be some weird things that, came out of that, but he was no, I'm going to do whatever I can to win this football game. So I just thought that moment was awesome. If y'all haven't seen that moment, look up the like mic'd up Super Bowl video, and you can kind of skip towards the end. It's really funny, but he's trying to convince everybody to charge Ted Ginn if he breaks it. Luckily, Ted Ginn almost broke it. But Ravens were able to gang tackle him. But I kind of wish we got to see Joe Flacco charge the field and make an open field tackle on Ted Ginn. But in addition to the Super Bowl run, Flacco was the Ravens franchise quarterback for 11 years. Obviously before Lamar Jackson took over. In that time, he was one of the greatest playoff quarterbacks ever. He won 10 playoff games in that time. How many has Drew Brees won? Less. How many has Russell Wilson won? Less. That just goes to show you how good Joe Flacco has been in the playoffs. We called him January Joe for a reason. His 10 playoff games are actually good for 13th all time in NFL history in the postseason. And so Joe Flacco, it's all about the playoffs with Joe Flacco. You look at the regular season, he was never anything like truly spectacular, but it got to the playoffs and you knew Joe was going to be able to come out and play very well. So, 11 years of good quarterback play for a franchise, it really in its infancy, it had only been around for, I don't know, this is off the top of my head, 13, 14 years before Joe Flacco got there. Maybe it was like 12 years. And he comes in and was able to really bring the Ravens up to another level. They were able to just consistently get to the playoffs as he was a game manager, was able to just drive them down the field, win close games and things like that, throw the deep ball. But yeah, so the argument for Joe Flacco having his number retired by the Ravens is obviously the Super Bowl run. He was a young quarterback for a very young franchise, and he was able to really take them to the next level, winning them the Super Bowl in the most improbable fashion. So that's the reason why Joe Flacco's number should be retired. Now we'll get into why it should not be retired. And I'm sorry, Joe Flacco. But Joe Flacco was not ever a top tier quarterback. There was always the borderline elite questions. And I think at one point, yes, he was elite. But elite is borderline top 10 quarterback. He was never, there was never, is Joe Flacco better than Aaron Rodgers? Is Joe Flacco a better quarterback than Peyton Manning? No. That was never, maybe in Peyton Manning's last year when he was really, really bad. But it was never a debate that would ever actually be had. It was just oh yeah, he's a decent quarterback. And in terms of, being an average quarterback for 11 years, that's nothing really spectacular. And obviously, once the Ravens started to lose their key players, guys like Ray Lewis, guys like Ed Reed, guys like Ray Rice, the Ravens really started to crumble, and Joe Flacco wasn't able to, really carry that torch. He had his first 4,000-yard season in 2016, and they went 8-8. When he was finally asked, "Oh yeah, you can be the quarterback that throws all the time," it was "Oh, he's not. It's not really working." When he no longer had Ray Rice and Willis McGahee, and it was Justin Forsett and Alex Collins, the Ravens weren't really succeeding. Joe Flacco was not, the defense was no longer, at the elite level that the defense used to be. They were still solid. This wasn't something where it was oh, their defense was horrible. The Ravens always have a good defense, but they weren't amazing. And Joe Flacco wasn't able to succeed. And that's something that you have to look at because, in the playoff run, the Ravens had one of the best, it wasn't one of the best defenses in the NFL, but they had one of the best red zone defenses in the NFL, which is obviously one of the most important aspects of defense, not allowing touchdowns in the red zone. So that's something that, we should really look at when we're looking at whether or not his jersey should be retired. He was, when you look at a quarterback that played 11 years for a team, was borderline top 10 for a couple seasons, and then for most of it was average, and they only won one Super Bowl. If he won two Super Bowls, like an Eli Manning type of player, then maybe we're in that conversation for should we retire that jersey. But he only won one Super Bowl, which had been done by the Ravens. If it was the first Super Bowl, for the Ravens franchise, if it was for example, this is not to say that Nick Foles' jersey should be retired, but if Nick Foles had a Joe Flacco type career for the Eagles and won them that Super Bowl, their first Super Bowl, it had been forever, then maybe it's okay, you retire that guy. But the Ravens had won a Super Bowl, around 10 years prior to that. It wasn't something where it was we broke the Bambino curse or something like that, to use a baseball reference. There wasn't anything like that. It was like, oh, it's been about 10 years and the Ravens won another Super Bowl. This wasn't some like, oh, wow, some crazy underdog story. But it was obviously still an underdog story. But he's not coming out and breaking some crazy curse. It was like, no, he was on a good team, that's had good historic success and goes out and wins a Super Bowl for them as an average quarterback that played like the best quarterback in the NFL that postseason. But like that was one postseason. So, he only won one Super Bowl. Really, in the regular season was nothing special. His most iconic regular season moment is probably him making a horrible decision to throw a check down on 4th and 29. Like that's his most iconic regular season moment, was a check down pass where Ray Rice did everything. And people forget, in the Tyler Boyd game, I hate to bring up that game. Ravens knocked out of the playoffs. In that game, Tyler Boyd, it wasn't a walk-off touchdown. The Ravens still had the football at the end of the game, and they had to go on a drive, and I don't think they had any timeouts. And, this is off the top of my head. I have not watched the game recently because I don't want to watch that game. But what happened at the very end, I remember this. It was like, I believe it was the 4th and 10. It was like the last play. The Ravens had to get a first down. I don't think they had any timeouts. They're at like their own 20-yard line. And Joe Flacco decided to throw a check down pass to Ben Watson. That summarizes Joe Flacco. The check down. He could throw the ball deep, but he threw a lot of check downs. And that, throwing a check down to Ben Watson in a very critical game on 4th and 10 on your own, 20-yard line trying to get to the playoffs is not it. This is an old Ben Watson, probably ran a 5-flat 40-yard dash at his age. Like he was slow. And obviously it did not work whatsoever, but that's the type of thing. And I'm not trying to slander Joe Flacco. I'm just trying to, say why his jersey shouldn't be retired. But now, okay, so now I've given both arguments. I've given the pro, I've given the cons. What do you think in the comment section down below? I asked you earlier to comment your original thought, but now re-examine it. Were you pro retirement? And now you're like, okay, no, maybe it shouldn't be retired, or vice versa. Let me know down in the comment section down below. Subscribe for daily Ravens content. And, I don't know, something for fun. Comment maybe your favorite like Joe Flacco memory you guys have. Mine was the Super Bowl moment. If there's another moment, let me know. And I'll see all of you again tomorrow.